Here we are in the vault on day 2 with Phil, and we've done some more work on these jazz cymbals that we, as you saw yesterday in some of the film, we're starting right from scratch and hammering these from pure blanks right out of the oven into what you see today. We've got a couple of 22s and 2 20s. The 20s are actually hammered a little bit differently with the HHX hammering, and this is a traditional artisanship of the hand-hammered cymbals. And Phil was asking yesterday also about some hi-hats that would blend very well with these. So this morning we did the same process that we applied to the 22s. We applied them to 14s, and they actually turned out very well. They've got the similar look, but to get them to open up and breathe a little bit, Phil, you were saying they were a little tight and dry this morning. So we just did a little more lathing on the bottom to let that cymbal spread and open up a little more, but still remain articulate and controlled. And the bottom we left pretty much unlathed except the original winding. And it's a light top and medium bottom, so it fits very well with this genre of sound and this style of cymbal. Dressed them up a bit today with the new custom shop logo, and this is something that we're doing more and more of. People are ordering custom orders, and instead of the old prototype that we've had for the last 15 years, you know, these are custom made cymbals, and it states that on them, so it's visually very appealing. I mean, it's really the full set. One other cymbal that we added was, Phil, you said you wanted a Chinese that reacted. It was kind of dark, but you didn't have to overplay it, just touch it and you get a nice response.
Yes, dark and soft.
So this particular cymbal, we started with a blank, and we used it on the Chinese hammer to get the profile, and then we applied hammering similar to the 19 Paragon, where it's very extensively hammered on the edge and flattened out. And it was still a little bit hard, so we incorporated some of the holes similar to the Holy China, even extra holes on the outside of the lip, which we typically don't do, but that actually let the cymbal open up and react very quickly.
It's like we have a nice bedding of sound from this area in the sense of a nice spread from these 2 types of cymbals for, like we were saying, the slow to medium tempos, and then we have for the faster tempos, and also a gear change, and, you know, not so much necessarily a faster tempo all the time, but just for a gear change, if you're playing behind another soloist that, you know, you're taking several choruses, you get a saxophone solo, vibe solo, and a guitar solo. It's nice to have a gear change, and these are really beautiful for that. And then this one comes like kind of a will-o'-the-wisp kind of thing, you know, whoosh. All of a sudden you're playing time and there's a whash, and it's beautiful.
And as you're saying, like, those cymbals are very in tune and musical and very precise, and these are much more complex sounding. And purposely we hammered them in a fashion that creates different tones throughout the cymbal. You may get a little bit higher note here and move in, and you get a low, darker note, so you can move around the cymbal based on your need for sound. So that's something I don't think is out there purposely, but we purposely did that in our hammering when we crafted these.
It's beautiful. Once you get to know the cymbal, you know where all the spots are. And if you use the logo as kind of a reference for direction, you know where the spots are if you got to go for different tones, you know, depending on who you're backing. And you can actually go, it's like a color palette, man. If, you know, an artist takes green or whatever, you have it right there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So the way we work with the concept of these cymbals, like in New York, a lot of times you're playing, you know, gigs and the people are right there on top of the kit, you know. So it's real important. Like, one of the hardest things to do kind of on drums is like burn, but at a soft volume, you know, that have a lot of intensity, but at a soft volume. So these instruments are perfect for that, because one of the things they do is that they really speak, you know, stick definition at low volume and low tempo, and also when you go to the high speed, you know, they don't overwhelm. Like that's a big problem when you're playing really fast, that the cymbals have a tendency to overwhelm. These have such nice control, and they speak so clearly, you know, that you can play fast and soft.
That's probably one of the reasons we had to go very, very thin on our blanks, because if you do a lot of lathing, you tend to lose control of the cymbal. It's very open, and it's controlling you. You're not controlling it. But by keeping the blanks, see how thin and flexible they are? I mean, but it's really controlled because of the lathing, just a lining process basically, but it's a very thin cymbal. And you're controlling it at whatever tempo or in whatever volume you want to, and you can bring it up and bring it down. But it's kind of built into the design, and the hat's the same way. They're very controlled.
Yes, and there's a nice balance between everything, and the hats are very versatile. Also, the thing is, when you're playing behind different soloists, I was mentioning to Mark, this was a big issue when you're playing behind a vibraphonist, or it's different than playing behind a saxophonist, or a guitar player might want a different texture, you know. And so that's why these two, like the yin and yang kind of thing, the change up, you know, that kind of has to match but be different. Mark did a really lovely job achieving that musicality, and with the hats too. The hats fit so nicely into the setup. That's really important.